Oh, this is so cool.
I'm
Free
clicking the live.
middle-aged people try
I
to
think it's live.
stream online.
Okay, there we go. Ooh.
Y'all's faces.
Well, because yeah. Hello,
Did it
everyone.
happen?
It happened. We're here. Look at us.
We did it.
3 women over 40 figure out technology. That's a better one.
2 women over 40 and 1 over 50.
Dang it. Keena's like, why are you telling our age? Okay, sorry.
Listen, I proudly hold the banner of middle-aged. You know, I do not shy away from it. I feel like every day basically every day after 25, I was like, woo.
Like, felt like bonus time.
Mm-hmm. So I'm so excited. This is our first time doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
Maisha, we can't hear you.
I'm trying to, hey, it's nice to be here with you. I had a 20-year-old, 19-year-old in my doorway.
Okay.
Paying my daughter for a charger. I mean, everybody's got to get their money. So sorry.
Should we let the people know what we're doing? I feel like that might be important.
Let's go. Take it away, Keena.
I'll start us off. And then I'll ping back to another middle-aged person on the street. So as of right now, y'all, this is 6 Sundays of stewardship. That's what we're calling this, right? And we're talking about the burdens, because there are lots of burdens, and we're talking about the blessings, even though I think I'm making that up. No, burdens and the boundaries and the becoming, right? In this moment, well, I just want the streaming audience to understand that you two are people who I regularly seek counsel with and from. And in these trying times, everyone needs to have a wisdom council, right? You need to have people who you can go to and say, hey, I need some wisdom around these things. But I think that for people like us who are stewarding audiences and leading conversations, whether it's the people who read books or go to our content, wherever it is we're teaching, because all 3 of us are teachers, right? I think we're recognizing that in this moment, you need the kind of community that also holds you accountable, right? With your words, with your choices, with your energy, right? And so it made sense to me that I extended this offer to you all, because you're both people who I regularly come to for counsel and support and accountability. And so I just thought, what if this magic thing that I experienced with Maisha and Pixie, other people can get it too, right? And so that's kind of the brainchild of what we've been processing together and out loud, because it seems to me that lots of people are really confused around a lot of things, but really how to show up and embody justice. And so we decided that, hey, okay, let's do more than we already do. Right? That's that. And you know, I tell people I'm a teacher by the like in the same vein of Bell Hooks, right? And Bell Hooks in her pedagogy series, right, wrote 3 books around like pedagogy, but specifically one of the things she names for teachers is teachers are healers, right? That's what we're asked to do. And so there needs to be a lot of healing around a lot of things. And I invited you all to join me in this conversation. And I'm very blessed and grateful that you all were like, yes, let's do that. And so that's what we're here for. And today we're going to start this 6-week series. And I also want people to know that this is not going to be 6 weeks linear. There's going to be some Sundays we skip, and the flyers are going to have that information. But today we wanted to start around the conversation rest, because it's, I don't know, possibly important for what we need as individuals, but as community. I am proudly here saying that yesterday I did not attend one protest, Maybe I would have if there were bouncy houses. So that's where we'll start the conversation.
I had to mute myself. Did you say bouncy houses? You would have went.
I think so. If there were bouncy houses,
I would have saw the bouncy house and been the person that said, "Oh no, it got unplugged." I mean, if there were no children in it, like, hold on.
Well, I mean, is
How
it really
bouncy?
a protest if you don't have bouncy houses for the kids? I don't know. Is that required of protest right now in 2025?
I mean, my kids have walked in the protest. They've held up their signs. My partner has walked my daughter on his shoulders because her feet hurt while we were walking the protest. So there was no bouncy houses. The kids are part of the movement, right? So they participate. They don't bounce. Period. So all of this, we need a bouncy house. It's some white people shit. Like, that's like my new thing. Like, occasionally I'll be real raw and uncut and say, let's talk about white people shit. And needing a bouncy house at a protest is white people shit. It's like putting raisins in potato salad.
Yeah, making it comfortable, making it convenient. I understand making it doable, but it's going to be a real leap to embrace the discomfort, you know.
Okay, so let's talk about the moment we're in.
Oh no. Oh, so we're waiting for somebody to start. I'm like, oh, we can free. Did we freeze?
I'm just taking a moment.
Taking a moment.
I like to call this moment. So in 2020, I said the Great White Awakening. This is the Great White Crash Out. I think that, and when I call it that, I'm actually talking about it's a grief that white people don't know how to wrestle with and name. And that's why they're overperforming. So I think this is a moment in history where folks who have had access to civil rights and just acts of privilege, it's slowly being pulled back, the layers of their privilege. And rather than sit and grieve like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Where do I find community? Where do I commune? What's the best way forward? They're moving back into reactivity versus response. So I think it's just a big collective grief for white folks. And they really need to learn how to move through it and not react to it.
I think, first of all, I did want to make sure I make time to like name, like, we are all three educators, advocates, but also bring very different lived experiences to these conversations. So I'll say this. I think my orientation and understanding to protest and direct action really came from a very, it's like terrible as it might be to say out loud, like from like a very academic lens, right? I wasn't the person whose parents or family members, I brought my mom to her first protest. So I do think there's something very special about people who like grew up in, like, your kids, you bringing them to protest, that's a special type of like family kind of, you know what I'm saying? So I came to the study of direct action vis-a-vis like reading about it in books. So that's different. And I think that's part of the reason why I've always never even named myself as an activist, because I feel like that is like some sweat equity, like Monday through Sunday type shit. And let's be honest, I'm helping people understand concepts, right? And so I don't even think it's fair for me to name myself as an activist. So I bring that to this conversation. But I think that whatever we see right now, like, there is a real kind of, to your point, Maisha, about a reaction versus response, right? So reaction is, I feel this. I feel the discomfort. I feel the shame. I feel the guilt. And I have to do something, almost anything, to get rid of it, right? Whereas responsiveness is like thoughtfulness, reflection, embodiment, thinking through what the next step is, right? There's a reason why we call them first responders, not first reactors, right? But I do think that in this moment, I see the struggle where there might be people, especially folks who were racialized as white, who were like, we were just doing what everyone told us to do. And now they're mad at us because we wanted bouncy houses. Maisha, we don't hear you. Right. So I do want us to tackle that a little bit if we can.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out who is everyone. I'm doing what everyone did. So are you saying people of color? Are you saying Black and Indigenous and people of color? Because are you saying racially ambiguous? Because there is a relationship, I feel, of Black and Indigenous women. There's such a shared history between the two of us. Me also naming that I'm also Indigenous. My grandmother was Cherokee. One was Black Seminole, one was Choctaw. Anyway, so I'm learning that about myself. But there's something that I can tell you're not going to Black and Indigenous women. I'll just say that. Yeah, go ahead, Pixie. I don't know.
I think those are very fair questions to ask. And I didn't tune in a whole bunch to what was happening yesterday. And on the topic of rest and the moment we're in and who's needing to take action, is that we've been over this for so many years, like almost a decade, of the big ramp up, right? The hyper reactionary. It's like a trauma response because what's happening feels traumatic to the body of people, the capital P people. And so what's happening with IDs are being taken away. If you don't have help me out.
A real ID?
IDs are being taken away on student campuses. It was happening in Davis and Sacramento yesterday for students who have not their gender assigned at birth on their IDs. So there's a lot of things that are already really rolling out that are scaring folks, and they're sad and they're angry again, but in a kind of a new way. But also we know that so many were sitting on their damn hands for the last 10 years that we've been talking about this. So I hear your sadness and anger. I hear my own. I see it in my family, but it's just not new. The F word of fascism, we were already using it a long time ago. And so I think that bouncy houses is just it's sort of like the pussy hat of this one, that what happens when we have to build in all these comforts and we have to get in the streets where people can't use the bathroom, it's a really, there's nothing wrong with people getting all in the streets. And I think that is a good gateway drug into a more sustainable action, which is where I've learned how to be because of both of you. And rest and the restoration that comes from sitting out a protest, because this is now our everyday life, is balancing and sustaining, figuring out how we're going to help our communities pay rent, figuring out how we're going to keep producing food, in my case, spending time on every day, living of justice, rather than the march is coming up. Let's get our water bottles filled. Let's go out and go do this thing so we can come back and not do anything for another 6 months.
I think, Pixie, that's the thing. I love where you're going. Kina, come back. Everyone's been sitting on their hands and it's time to protest. And I keep asking them, so what are you going to do next? What's next? You went to protest, now what? So I was in my car and I'm like, okay, I'll make a quick little reel. I'm like, well, what's next? You take one day off and then you niche down your journey and then you get hyper local and then you keep going. I think this is the time for white folks to be in action, but it's not centering community. It's really centering politics. And
it's the busyness. Yes. Right. I need to feel like I'm doing something because so much feels out of control.
Right. It's like 0 or 60. I'm hypervigilant. I'm on alert. I've got to do something. I've got to say something. There's power with a lot of people in the streets, but what happens after is do whatever you want in the streets, but like what happens after that is something that we talk about a lot. And the thing is, you know, whiteness, part of this conversation got started between you and I, Kina, because we were talking about how whiteness has no boundaries, you know, just inserts itself and then it just goes away and it just positions itself wherever it wants to be, regardless of what's going on. And so this lack of boundaries, which obviously I do a lot of talking about, is, I don't know, I think we'll end up cracking into it, but I am noticing that the groups, Black and Indigenous people and people of color and marginalized populations, particularly queer and disabled, are not holding the identities, but what being in the streets is about, for me, is about protecting, spotlighting what's happening in American politics and agendas that are tormenting these groups, disappearing and incarcerating, spotlighting, starving, you know, like we've said all along, and I got this straight from you all, but like when you are in defending the sacredness of these populations, everyone will do better. Like everyone will benefit. You really won't have to worry about your own ass if you are just prioritizing that.
Yep. You truly will experience freedom.
Yeah. In a world where Black and Native trans femmes are safe free and able to thrive.
Yep.
Right. That should always be the goal line.
Yep.
I think something that is also worth noting is, because I do hear for some people the curiosity, right? Again, this could be read as a critique, right? Like, we can't do it right? So I just want to make sure we're like putting some guardrails here. Like when people said, or when, let's just say Black women, right? Like I was part of the 92% and we were like, we did our part, whatever that energy was, right? Everybody else needs to pick up the charge, right? That was not a charge that was, hey, just create spectacle, right? That's not what the instruction was, right? And a lot of times protesting is about spectacle. And sometimes spectacle can do something. It doesn't do all the things. But it really was saying like, hey, take ownness, right, of what's happening right now. Find yourself in the conversation, meaning, hey, how have I contributed to the harms, right? And then what do I have to leverage to create solvency? Find yourself in both of those, right? So that was what I think the instruction was, right? Is pick up your mantle, pick up the charge, all right? Do some things that you've never done before, right? But I think sometimes it's easy for people to want to do the easiest thing, and the easiest thing that's going to be visible and also make me look like a good person, right? What's sexier? Getting the kids all together, matching t-shirts and showing up to the protest, or like staying on your, like showing up every Tuesday to not sexy school board meetings? What's sexier, right? Getting on TikTok and making a video, or figure out how to feed the Palestinians in your community? You see what I'm saying? Because that doesn't get a round of applause. And so that's part of the challenge, is we're saying, hey, folks need to do sweat equity, but people are still wanting the fandom, the attention, right? So
yeah,
how do we help
for feeding people?
I think that I would do sexy school board meeting with a sexy school board mom. Get ready with me. Do that. Get ready with me while I wear my fishnets to the school board meeting.
So you can have the best of both worlds, right? Like
at least brand it a little bit better, right? Like maybe I should do one. Maybe I should do one on my birthday, April 30th, for everyone who's watching.
Yeah.
I should do a get ready with me to go feed the unhoused before the Beyonce concert. Go in my whole Cowboy Carter regalia and go show you how to do this. Like, you could still be for Beyonce and take care of your community.
No, you can't, Maisha. Clearly you can't. Clearly you don't care, all right, about babies.
Listen,
housing
Jamal said the best. Those cause colonizers, you leave them cause colonizers over there. Okay, we're talking about rest. This is why I can't be on live.
Okay, so back to the choice not to protest. Okay, great. So I want to dismiss, I think there's a myth that I feel like I want to dismantle. Okay, so this is what I came on the live to say. Is it's very telling, and that there are people who are making accusations, and I've heard some of them. Oh my gosh, the Black women are sitting on the building. They don't care. They're just watching the world burn. They're having brunch, right? Okay. Although I think this is a very interesting place in boundary setting to see so many Black people collectively being like, leave us alone. I don't know if there's ever been a time where I saw collectively Black people being like, leave us out of it. So that alone is a very kind of special moment we're having. Black people are like, I'm learning a line dance. I'm getting ready to learn all Cowboy Carter songs. Like, I don't have time for this. I'm having brunch, right? And I think a lot of people who are not Black are seeing that as like very, like, don't they care? But we've cared so much, right? And so let's talk about Black people who have worked tirelessly, not only for our own rights, but for the rights of all types of people, especially in the continental United States. And getting to a point where, like, this is an analogy I got from Pixie. Hey, I've been carrying the refrigerator by myself for a very long time. And I'm exhausted. And my back hurts. Right? Some other people have to join in. All right? So that is the impetus for me personally saying, oh, there is some space for Black folks to rest. There's some space for me to rest, because this is ongoing generational fights for equity and for justice and to end oppression, right? So I want that context to exist for people to understand some of what they're witnessing, right? Because there are people who probably were like, why aren't the Black people showing up to the protest, right? It is like really trying to create some boundaries around the fact that we've been doing our share and a lot of other people's share of the work for a very long time.
Centuries. It's so interesting too that it brings up a point of sort of where I come from, which is a rural America, farm country, ranch country. When you see somebody doing something, you don't stand around, you work. If somebody is shoveling snow on your neighbor, you go out and shovel with them. If somebody's unloading a pickup and and you're there, you don't stand around and talk to them and watch while they just do all that labor themselves. So it's such an interesting selectiveness about how we view each other as people. And we were talking earlier, Kina, about how we exchange our humanity. We trade our humanity for staying in the game, right? Like, we want to stay in this game of democracy, all the people, and particularly people who are marching and protesting, want to stay in the game of what they believe democracy is. But it's really not a democracy. It's so many people who have traded their own humanity for whatever it is they think democracy is promising them, whether it's their Medicare and Medicaid, their Social Security, their whatever the perks are for that particular group. And so that trade-off, just like, speaking of sexy and unsexy, like, isn't very interesting to me anymore, especially while people are being harmed at the levels they're being harmed at and nobody even knows about it. So protecting democracy, especially watching some of the little bit that I tuned into, like watching some of the Democrats like kind of seize the moment, like some of the Pelosi's and whatnot kind of showing up and really inserting themselves intrusively into the march of the people, like the capital P people, to capitalize on this big swell of energy. To what end, right? So there's still going to be two groups in in particular, and many marginalized in subsets of those groups who are going to continue to be neglected, erased, and dismissed in this whole entire conversation. So rest and restoration, I want to hear what you all say about it, whether you want to talk about your own practices or not. But I think at a collective level, you either have to claim, like the 92% can claim that rest and sit back and sit this one out, or, go to brunch or whatever, whatever makes the people who have been carrying all the loads of refrigerators for so long, and let some others do the heavy lifting. But who will they be centering and considering while they're doing that heavy lifting? Is it going to be their own asses, or is it going to be?
And that's the part that I sit with, right? Is we're going to rest, but because white folks can't see outside of white folks, they're not thinking about us. They're not thinking about Black or Indigenous or bodies of culture. It's self-preservation. So they're doing the heavy lifting for their own self-preservation. Like, it's really about, they think it's for the collective, but the major benefactor of the work that they will be doing, those who are not truly in liberation work, will be for themselves. And for me, my rest practice is I literally now only get on social media on the weekends. I am not on my phone all day. I have some sound bowls and some meditation music playing. I don't watch the TV. Watching the TV is just dysregulates my nervous system. I get out in nature as much as I can. And because I guess if I don't rest, I don't really have space and capacity to hold myself or others. Long COVID has taught me the importance of trusting my body's wisdom. And so now we have a group of people, like, now this is what it is. We have a group of people that don't know what it means to connect to the body. So then it becomes disembodied lifting. And so they're just doing things for the sake of doing things. And that's where it gets like, yeah, I may be resting, but also like I need to also still remain vigilant as a voice or a guide for folks who are still needing help on their path.
Kina, does that move you to say something?
So I don't think you can see it really, but my t-shirt has 4 numbers on it. Dark green shirt, and it has like a black block. And it has the number 7053. And 7053 is the number of the mugshot that Rosa Parks when she was arrested. Like that's the number on the mugshot, like the mugshot ID or whatever. And I think it's, if you don't have, I would caution people to like read the non-revised version of history, right? Because the revisionist, the whitewash history of Rosa Parks is she was just a tired Black lady on the bus, right? Like she just that day she just couldn't, right? But in reality, that is not true, all right? Rosa Parks was a Black woman who was heavily involved in community organizing in the NAACP, and that organization had done a series of trials around direct actions and bus boycotting. They were inspired by the work that had happened with the Baton Rouge boycott. So, shout out to Baton Rouge. And so she was very practiced. She was very studied, right? That was not her first hurrah, right? And so I think there's something really powerful about understanding that if anybody is going to come into a place of a direct action, right, then they have to be studied and they have to be aware and they have to understand who are they advocating for and why, right? So Rosa and them were very aware of the injustice around the bus system, the economic disparities that were in the community. Do you understand? They were well versed in those issues. So they didn't just show up to do things. So what we're needing people to do in this moment, believe it or not, is put some pause, put some reflection to even understand, why are you showing up, right? Who are you showing up for, right? And I think it's interesting, Maisha, that you're saying this part about, there are people who are like, I had to go out there and march because of my rights or my family, whatever. And I don't want to say that that's a bad thing. In fact, when people get into coaching with me, one of the first things I say is stop saying you're doing this for your Black and Indigenous and da 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 da. I say this because you're doing it for your humanity, right? And recognize where your humanity is at question or not even being honored by violent systems and ideologies, right? So then it's not like a gift to me. So I have a little, I want people to put themselves into the conversation, but not in ways that dismiss the history of who's been violated, but more like, I'm tired of white people in particular feeling like they're doing a favor for me because they read a book, right? Or because they showed up on a protest. Stop thinking you're doing a favor for me, right? The reality is that all these violent systems are actually robbing all of us of shared humanity, right?
Absolutely.
And so show up from a place of like, I am actually made better in a world where there is Indigenous sovereignty. I am made better in a world where there's not transphobia. You get what I'm saying? Like, we've got to offer that reframing to people, right? So they can stop feeling like they're giving kindness handouts.
Right.
Yeah. My children are safer in a world that treats Black humanity and Indigenous people and land as sacred, as sovereign.
Yep.
It's a pretty big hole we've got ourselves into.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sit from the sidelines observing, but I do a lot of observing of humanity, and it's a real mess out there. And I think it's really impossible not to consider the historical context of how we got here within every conversation that we have. And there's like some legit resentments there that we're all working on, behind the scenes, working on those resentments and trying to figure out how to take care of ourselves, navigate. There was this post that I put up recently. I don't post about Palestine very often because I don't know a lot about, I know what isn't right, but I don't know a lot of the inner workings of how they got there. And so I put something up last week or so, and it was really heavily commented on. And the what was in question was, are Jewish people Indigenous? And the author of the article that I reposted is a rabbinic scholar and also Quechua. And so this perspective of his was coming through, like what is Indigenous? And Indigenous in his studies, and many of his peers agreed, and colleagues agreed, that Indigenous is a response to being colonized and erased. And so the breakdown of how we identify who's keeping land, who's keeping language, who's holding the sacredness of humanity, who's carrying that, and who's profiting from it, is something that's always really fascinating to me. And one of the things that I discovered, because what we're seeing in Palestine, it's very possible that it's already happening in many places, but it could be happening right here. It could be happening in Mexico. It could be happening in Canada. And in some ways it has throughout history. But what was really fascinating to me was that the ways in which we see whiteness, Europeanness, defending its indigeneity or its perceived indigeneity is with great violence. And I heard it here first. I heard it from you two first. What would happen if we defended our Blackness, our indigeneity, with the level of violence and dismissive passivity that is just? What kind of world would that look like? You're muted, Kia.
I can give you concreteness here, right? And this is getting real sticky. And I want to return to best practice. But I do want to answer this question. So let's talk about the Louisiana Purchase, right? I tell people all the time, like, biggest land grab in the continental United States. Thomas Jefferson inks the deal, right? But part of the reason why that happens is because the French were basically bankrupt, right? After the Haitians beat their asses with their revolution, right? And so, like, in my imagination, while you were posing that question, I was like, what if Black folks were like, or at least Haitian people, right? We're like, all of this ours. Like whatever that map is, like every part of the Louisiana Purchase. All right. Like Black people on the wall, like, right? But it couldn't happen. It couldn't happen because so many people would be like, how dare you even like pretend to lay claim to that? Also, I would use any opportunity to like let people know that the Louisiana Purchase happened because Haitian people revolted against the French. So there's that. But no, people wouldn't be supportive of that, Pixie. If the 594 tribes, I believe, recognized tribes, is it 594?
74.
574. My apologies. If the 574 recognized tribes, notice there's more tribes, more groups of people, but those are the recognized ones. Yes?
Yeah.
If they started like walking down the street, just kicking people out.
Well, the land back movement is happening. It's underway, right? But what if it was underway in the way that American capitalism, European colonialism?
So that is what I'm saying. Like with militia. Do you know what I'm saying? Like militia backed, like the Homa here where I am, right? The ones that have remained, like, I don't know where you got to go, but you got to get the hell out of here, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the moment we're in is intense, and it seems like it's taking so much, not just physical violence. That always gets the news headline, right? Or sometimes in certain cases. But the financial violence, the emotional violence, the relational violence, everything that is rolling out as a result of how things are, like this moment is being so felt. So it does not surprise me that, for example, your practice, Maisha, is like, I don't know what the percentage is because I'm terrible at math, but like, 80% of your time is spent in maybe not rest, but restoration. And then here's when you do, the lion's share of your work. And it's you're committed to it, and it's your devotional practice. And erstwhile, you build energy and a resource to be able to do that bit. I don't know any other way to talk about it other than to say this is, some of what we're seeing here. This moment is, many people, my colleagues would say it's a spiritually sick society, spiritually and morally bankrupt. Did you want to say anything, punctuate, or say anything, Maisha?
Sorry. Yeah, I was just, that kind of got me out. I was kind of looking down. I remember, I'm sorry, just a second. I remember one of the last podcast episodes I recorded in studio. I remember saying that if the environment is sick and the people are sick, no wonder the world is in a constant state of dis-ease. So yes, we are in an environment where the environment is unhealthy. It's just like climate change. What's happening in our environment is absolutely what's happening to us as a people. We are literally a product of the environment, right? We are killing our oceans. We are like destroying. There's just so much. I don't even want to get into climate, but it is true that when you look at the state of the world, when you look at pollution, when you look at water, lack of resources, we are killing the earth. And in earthly, back in a lot, from what I understand, is we are just here to steward the earth, to nourish it, to help plant, to help harvest, to help build and cultivate. And yes, now we are at a cost that the industrial revolution now is tearing that ecosystem of woman, man, two spirits connection to earth apart. And so that's why we are where we are. Like there is no connection to land. And so of course the people are fighting and tearing each other up. And it's just like, hate to sound like a movie, but the circle of life, right? If we are one with the earth, if we are one with nature, then what we see in is a part of our nature's response to the illness of the world, the physical illness of the earth. I mean, I don't know if that made sense, but as I was saying it felt like it made sense. So,
no, a lot of what you put down made sense, sis.
Thank you.
We're working it out.
Yeah.
Keenan, you go ahead?
No, I do think we're in a spiritual moment, and I know that that's a big word that a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings about, and I understand why. But one of the things that have been carrying me in this very trying time is that I can't do things, and people who've been learning from me across the internet, I feel like I've been pretty consistent with this messaging, that I can't do anything out there that I don't do in here, right? And I can't do anything, and by the in here I mean in community, right? And then I can't do anything in community that I don't do in here with me, right? So then it is, I practice with myself, I do with the people that I love and I like lock hands with, and then I can replicate that out into the larger society, right?
Yeah.
So when I say rest, right, I actually encourage everyone, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, to get a practice during these very strenuous times of what is the kind of self-honoring you have to do for your breath, for your body, right, for your spirit, right, so that you don't puke out everything that's out there, right? Because everything that is out there is opposing life in every way. In every way. So regardless of your race, regardless of what part of the country you live in, creating a sanctuary in yourself is of utmost importance right now. Because when I'm grounded, when I am self-honoring and self-compassionate, then I can give that to Maisha, then I can give that to Pixie, then I can, right? And then I can see and give that to other people too. And so that's the kind of rest that I think everyone can think through right now. Like, what are the things that I need to give myself, right? Because one of the things that these violent systems do is they force us to outsource our value. Capitalism says your value is based off of your bank account and how big your house is.
Yeah.
All right. Patriarchy says your value is based off of how many men want to sleep with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we've got to create in us right now in this moment that kind of groundedness, this, right? A seeing of myself fully, shadow parts and all, so that I can have the capacity to do the kind of imagining that we need to do while we still resist. And that's important because I do want people, especially folks who are racialized as white, I'm saying it like, right? Like, you actually are don't want to use that word. You should have something in place for yourself to take care of yourself in meaningful ways.
Well, can I say, are you still, sorry, you might be still talking.
No, I'm good. I'm just saying because I do think that sometimes, because a lot of times white folks are really good at self-flagellation too. They think that feeling terrible
that I was getting ready to speak to that self-flagellation. But also there's a point to this too. Just in 2020, when white people were told they weren't allowed to have feelings, they need to suck it up. There's a lot of trauma that you, as a white person, if you're watching this, may have to hearing that. And how do we make space to help people get out of self-flagellation, right? Because of the trauma of being told, as a white person, you have no feelings. As a white person, your job is just to unlearn. And I'm only regurgitating what's said to me in comments. As a white person, my job is just to listen and learn. But you're not artificial intelligence. You can't just listen. You're a whole human being. So how do you tap into your reality and realize you're a human with feelings and emotions? Your feelings are not an emergency, but like, how do we
That's
model
good. Your
that, right?
feelings are not an emergency. That's
Pixie, how do you, as a white presenting Indigenous woman, how do you navigate your care and center what you need so you can show up for women like Kina and myself? Not show up for us, with us.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of decades of unpacking and doing a lot of healing in all the areas, childhood wise, family wise, getting in later stages, really getting into that multi-generational healing. You and I were talking yesterday, Maisha, about, you know, the ancestors being in the room all day, every day with us. And I think that navigating care is building confidence through balancing and creating a sustainable practice of, I wouldn't also call myself an activist, but a justice-based. I mean, you've said it this way for so long, Maisha, like it's lifelong learning, right? This is just who we are now. This is just how we're moving now. And so bringing that level of consciousness to the way I and others around me, my family, are moving on a day-to-day basis is recognizing where we are in the structure, right? So we're browner than some, and we're white, you know, we're whiter than some, browner than some, you know, we're always recognizing who's got the power here in this situation. And also understanding that, as for my daughter and I, especially as female identified and female beings, we know where we are in the patriarchy, where we stand with our Black and Indigenous kin, and our queer and trans kin. We know where we have power. And so I think doing a nice deep dive into how power presents, but also like everything that falls behind that, we work in food, so food deserts and food resources, and the way that everything food is what we talk about here is. I've joked with both of you and said, you know, I wake up in the morning, I check the news, and then I'm like, but how are we going to eat, right? And I see people running and scurrying all over the place, and so everything, I filter so much through the lens of food, having disordered some form of disordered eating since a child, and mending that through becoming a food grower and hunter. I feel like, because food is also, it's nourishment, but everything that we have available to us is metaphorical nourishment, right? Spiritual nourishment, financial nourishment, emotional nourishment, the way that we hold each other, the way that we carry the biggest baskets together because one of us can't do that. The way that I navigate is to figure out where am I the one with the most power here? Then that's where I need to do something, change something, activate, show up, push it. Yeah, I think it sets off a lot of wheels turning. Thank you for asking that, Maisha. I think that what I observe among the people is that they're not having an understanding of where they have power. They feel helpless and they feel powerless, and I understand why. But the power that they do have is not necessarily being utilized on a collective and community level, because perhaps there's no memory, a recent enough memory of their societies needing to exist in that way. You know, we can essentially be socially and politically Black, Indigenous, and marginalized, disabled, elder. We can show up that way politically. Personally, though, people are showing up in appropriative ways, trying to get that whiteness off of them, or, claiming certain identities so that they can embody the helplessness that they feel. But what is happening is, on a personal level, there's the using of our cultures, right? In all the ways, whether it's through recreation, sports, music, entertainment, spiritual concepts and things like that. And there's no political basis like that. Those are hollow. You know what I mean? You're here on our land. You're here in our buildings that Black people built, in all of our institutions. And obviously, part of me, part of many of us, is who are mixed identities or mixed race, feel that and can really have to dive into it. But I feel like you love our land, you love our music, you love our sports players, but when it comes to your politics and your social policies, you don't give a shit. And that's a really difficult resentment to carry around. And I want to see people caring in a way that isn't just performative, emotional, social media stuff. That stuff, it's great to say, I want to be a part of this. And there's an invitation to do that. But unpacking, start looking through your luggage. If you're new to this journey, start digging into the entire spectrum. Draw yourself a big circle on a big piece of paper and explore all the ways in which you're able to show up and not able to show up, the ways in which you insert yourself when you could be listening, and the ways in which you need to speak up when you can be.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the question that you gave Maisha Pixie, what am I doing in terms of rest? I think it's very important to acknowledge that if you are someone who is a descendant of enslaved peoples, by way of chattel enslavement, because there's all types of slavery, so I want to be mindful of that. But if you are someone who genetically is tied to the transatlantic, the Middle Passage, right? Mm-hmm. There's this deep knowing in your body that you exist here for white comfort. That is why our ancestors were brought here, right? And also, let me just name this too, because that is true for other people of the global majority, right? So that is not limited to the descendants of enslaved people, right? But that concept of rest is complicated because it literally undoes why I exist, right? I exist for the doing and for, you know what I'm saying? And so that's why also this moment is really actually sacred for Black people, especially those of us who are descendants of enslaved people, to be like, nope, I'm taking lots of steps back, right? Because my ancestors couldn't, right? Because my ancestors had to breastfeed generations of white children, right? And so rest for me looks like really reckoning with some of that ancestral stuff. It's living and embodying things that Black women in my lineage couldn't, right? It's like coming to this full circle moment, right? That I can gift my ancestors that. Like, you know what? My great-great-grandmother couldn't take a nap in the middle of the day, but I can. So for me, rest is, like you said, restorative. It's about reclamation, right? You know, I will just say this, like even watching Corey the other day, part of what felt good about that is knowing who built that building, right? Knowing that he was a Black man who was standing in a building that Black people built for free and their owners got paid and they didn't, right? and he's evoking the Honorable Elijah, and he's invoking John Lewis, right? And so all of these people he's bringing back into the space. And so honoring, right? Honoring myself, honoring what has been behind me, that's what rest looks like. And like demanding time for those things.
I want to say too, for those who are watching, we do demand time for those things, and we are worthy of those things. And I think one of the hardest parts is, for me, sometimes when it comes to the rest, is the financial capital to do so. Because that's the other piece that's missing from Black bodies, is there was never reparations given. And we show up on these platforms. There's just a whole masterclass, I think, that Black folks in liberation work need to take around how much of ourselves do we give for free, and how much do we invite people and white folks, to white friends, to invest, and the aversion that white friends have to us asking them to invest in us. And what does that tie to? Like, we know Black folks are deserving of rest, but we won't invest in our rest, but we'll take their free content.
I mean, maybe if we just all caught ourselves the job, that would make a difference. You know, like if I
the man who raised $125,000 and
yeah, like maybe if I just give myself a cool, like, you know, like, oh, maybe I can use AI to make a white version of me.
Well, no, I think there's just something ancestral around white folks, and the epigenetic remembrance of that body is only to give for free. It is an unconscious memory. And I think
no, and I'm about to get real spicy. Kina said it. Maisha didn't say it. Pixie said it. So anyone who's pissed about it, just know that this grown woman said it. It's not just white folks. Let's be very clear that all types of people look at people like me and you, Maisha, and expect free labor.
Oh, yeah, it's not just white folks. Oh, God, if you're assimilated here and you're from other cultures, shut up, Maisha. Yeah. The point is that people tie free labor to Black bodies, and that is a remembrance of other folk. And even, people equate that to free labor, and no one really thinks about what are the unconscious behaviors of my ancestors that live within my DNA that I need to work through. This is why I say this work is healing work. I don't even use the word anti-racism. I don't call it anti-racism because it's a job that white folks can't live up to, which is why they like to use the title but don't perform well with it. They need to do the deep ancestral healing work to go into remembrance so they can stay consistent and recognize that, hey, wait a minute now. I might have read Heal Your Way Forward or White Fragility, but I'm still causing harm. Why is that? I'm still expecting Black bodies to do free work for me. And when they don't do it, I go in their comments and center myself in my pain and my white womanhood to get their attention. That is what abuse survivals do. Whiteness has been abusive to all of us, but white folks in particular have a response that is not helpful, but hurtful.
I'd like to offer an example of what it looks like to, I want to just do a quick education. Do we have time? Are we okay to take a
look? Yeah, I think it's like 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. So my tribal nations are from the Southeast, and that is the Muskogee Creek, the Cherokee, and the Choctaw. And I'm an enrolled member of the Choctaw Nation of now Oklahoma that moved from Western Alabama and Eastern Mississippi. And which is interesting. I love that you have your Cherokee ancestry, Maisha, and that you live on Houma and Choctaw lands down there. Just kind of put that together today. Southeastern tribes were had early contact, like many of the colonies on the coast, but there was a sort of a special blend of French and Spanish in those areas of the deep, what we would now call the Deep South, and the 5 civilized tribes, right, were getting along with the Spanish and the French for quite a long time, trading, becoming civilized. When the British came in and started demanding land and purchasing land, and fast forwarding a little bit to Andrew Jackson pre-removal, my ancestors who are Native were slaveholders. 5 civilized tribes are slaveholding tribes. So I always say AKA the slaveholding tribes. And I'm not talking about enslaved people in the way that people say, well, Native people were stealing family members from each other and things like that long before. Not in this way, and and Black folks weren't even here yet. So by the time Indian removal began in the 1830s with my Choctaw tribe, they were traveling their enslaved peoples with them to the territory, to Oklahoma. The reason why I bring this up is to say that I think that we want an immediate pass when we hold an identity that would not necessarily be assumed to have been involved in the enslavement of peoples and the purchase and selling and dehumanization of Black folks. I've had the benefit of working with and talking with the Choctaw and Chickasaw freedmen and working in ways to, number one, unpack that in ourselves, and number two, unpack that with our nations and demand that our kin be recognized by our tribes, receive benefits from our tribes, stop passing the buck between the federal government and the tribes, which is what they've been doing for decades since this became an issue. So it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing for people to be like, I don't want to look at those horrible torments that my ancestors caused. Just look at it. Don't be afraid. Reparations for Black and Indigenous people in this nation state, this nation that we have, is we can't get anywhere if we don't look at what happened and what's happening now as a result of it. It just is like, I don't know if that's square one, but I guess I just say it because there are a lot of Indigenous and Native American people who don't want to have this conversation. And yeah, did you want to say something, Aisha?
I feel like that's actually a good, spoiler alert. We never got to your rest practice, Pixie. What does rest look like for you right now?
I probably just neurodivergently skirted the entire thing. I love laying down. And so any chance I get in the bed. And I just, maybe I'm sleeping and maybe I'm not, but I'm not moving my body. I have to move my body so much because of what I do that if I have the opportunity, I just let myself lay down. And my grandmothers and many of my family members were great at doing that. And they encouraged us growing up. And I don't know if that's a Southern thing or what, but they would always say, if I was like, I'm so tired, even as a child, they'd say, go get in the bed. It was always there for you. You didn't have to wait until nighttime. You could rest your body. One of my dad's favorite things to say was, let's sit down and rest a minute. We got things to do, but let's sit down and rest a minute. Rest was prioritized as a family value for me. And so it looks like sitting down. It looks like doing idle things, putzing around, not pushing myself, even though my, income slides and I'm still like, I'm not giving up my rest practice.
That's a powerful thing. I feel like all three of us have said something to that extent of us making choices to prioritize rest, but there's cost associated with it, right? Yeah. There's cost associated with it. I decided for the first time in 4 years not to do my divesting for white feminism in this month. And it was so funny because initially I was talking to Maisha and I was like, Maisha, if you're going to do something, let me know what date you're going to do so I can amplify yours and then I do mine. So, girl, I turned around and I was like, you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be. And there has been a lot of that in my life lately. It's going to be what it's going to be. Right. But the key word is we actually want everyone to create a rest practice right now. Right. Because people need to be grounded, because as the assaults keep more and more stuff gets out of you get what I'm saying? The pattern's gonna be when you're hurt, you hurt other people.
Well, I just think everyone should come to my sound healing class.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think everyone should be buying their friends roses, rather they plugged up or they came out the ground.
I like making floral arrangements. I just don't know how to mail them out of the state.
But
I love how sweet Maisha wants.
Oh, my blue baddies! See how excited I get about them.
But Maisha, I think you missed what the place I took it, sis.
Oh, I think I did. I thought you were being real serious.
It's also really restful to do what we do a lot of times behind the scenes, which is talk about trivial, petty stuff, and to not have to be talking about serious things all the time and working all the time. We get to play.
I think if people saw our internal text messages to each other, they'd be shocked.
I think everyone needs to buy a set of blue baddies. That's what they're called.
I love it.
Okay, so our next Sunday episode.
Sorry, Kina.
You know what? Give me one more week and I'll put some up for sale.
They need to be $1,000 each. Are those glass or plastic?
They're handmade by Maisha T. Hill. These are $5,000.
$5,000. Gotcha.
There you go.
April 13th is our next Sunday. This series continues.
April 13th. That's a week from today.
Yeah.
6 Sundays of Stewardship. What are we going to be talking about?
Historic responsibility.
Ooh.
Which is why I was like, that's such a good spoiler alert when Pixie gave us that very thoughtful and timely history lesson. Historic responsibility.
Historic responsibility. Okay, I have something.
Wait, what'd you say, Pix?
I was gonna punctuate with building kinship, historic responsibility, repairing and rebuilding kinship.
All right, so
it's about me.
Okay, well we're workshopping. I'm so honored that you both decided to hear my call for this very public dialogue, about what people are needing in their toolkits to not only survive fascism, but embody new ways to be just and to be people. Because that's what I need. I've gotten to this point in my life where I need to be around people who try to people well. Why you put the bestest finger up, Maisha? This is not.
I think I know what people's problem is. This is, if you have kids in the room, tell them to leave. I think what really needs to happen is that everyone needs to put on a pair of fishnets, some red lipstick, some high heels, turn on some Johnny Gill, right? It's just be real sensual with themselves and ground into their bodies.
That's what I was talking about when I said buy your friends a rose rather from the ground or the kind that plugs in.
Oh, the kind that plugs in. You talking about some
toys.
Oh. So I think that must be another conversation where we talk about what it means to embody your. Pixie's like, okay, we're done. Okay, gotcha.
No one. I hope we can work that.
I need a sponsor. Dead ass. I have said that so much at this point. How can I get a partnership with that company?
Oh, I got an email. I'm gonna forward you. Email that person. You got it. They keep emailing me, and I'm like, no.
I would be such a great sponsor me.
Kina, you know what you should host?
I'm not only a client, I'm the president or whatever that.
Exactly. I've been thinking about a kink and liberation class. Kink and liberation. So I think, Kina, you should host a totally Toy Story party.
Good day.
There it is.
I need a little bit more practice before I'm ready to launch that situation.
Okay. See, you have to have fun.
Behind the scenes, people are sending us stuff. They know that we're tired over here. So if you have special sensual toys and things that you work for a company,
should we all put links in our bio? Should we? I feel like we should. Like low key, we should all like be like, these are the toys I need next.
You could have a wish list.
Yes, you can have a wish list.
Well, I mean, Pix already knows about the latest thing I bought myself. I send you a picture, so for you to have, because like my thing is like.
So basically, you're just ending the live saying everybody get you a magic bullet and call it a day.
Oh, it's way better than magic bullet.
I said Rose, okay?
It sucks and blows at the same time. That's all we're saying.
I love this horse. I think we can do this well. Rest looks like plug it in.
Well-timed raunchiness.
I just wanted to say, you just said plug it in, and that Glade commercial just popped in my head, and they're like, plug it in, plug it in. I'm that old that I remember those kind of commercials.
I was thinking about Hair Club for Men when you were talking about getting a subscribership. That's what popped into my much older than you all mind.
Oh, I remember those commercials, and I'm like, that guy looks so strange.
But I'm serious. We're joking. I really would like, if someone wants to partner with me to start doing like a whole bunch of promotion or
turn up the volume on that.
Absolutely. You put it out in the universe, it's coming to you. You want it, it's yours. Just be ready to receive it.
I like that as a new chapter for me, you know? Like she went from talking about whiteness to like how to experience peak orgasms.
No, I think there's a relationship to that. I think if certain women experience pleasure, we wouldn't have a lot of problems. And I really think that that's a deep conversation for another day.
Are we saying collectively if Black and Native women started orgasming more?
Completes the stress cycle. It's an act
of
reparation.
Change the atmosphere? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, definitely. But we need those other women to do it too. But we need them to be able to feel it in their bodies. They don't know what they.
This just went in a whole direction I did not expect.
Never mind. People are probably just like, "Whoa!" Maybe it's tantra. I'm thinking about liberated tantra.
But okay, I'm serious. I'm gonna wrap it up here. If we lived in the world, right? If we lived in a society where we were invested in creating a society where more Black and Native women could orgasm.
If they wanted.
I like the way you light up when you talk about this. I think you might need to become a consultant for that one toy company and bring it into your work, like liberated toy parties. Like, I think so.
Make it an easier world for Black women to come. Real fast.
Oh Jesus! Oh Jesus! Okay.
Relief comes in many forms. Help us on the way.
Are we done?
Who knows what creativity is going to birth out of about all of this rest while other folks are getting caught up, and I hope that they really do.
Man, I think while everybody's getting caught up, everybody needs to throw on something sexy, go to a twerk class, get on a pole,
drop down 5-year-old with your ass in a circle.
Throw that ass in a circle.
Throw that ass in a circle.
I feel like that's a good benediction.
Yes. My prompt for you today is, how will you ensure you throw that ass in a circle this week?
My last words are, you deserve roses, whether they came from the ground or you plug them in. That's my last word.
My last word is, oh gosh, probably around, I mean, we did choose burdens, boundaries, and becoming.
Oh my God!
The tension is for real.
at the end of every session, we will be talking about all things pleasurable.
Clearly, because if we went for burden, boundaries, becoming.
It shatters the tension. I'm telling you.
It does. It does.
There you go. I love that for us.
So instead of worrying about a bouncy house at your next protest, worry about bouncing that ass.
I love y'all. Thank you so much for this much needed levity.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. We'll see y'all April 13th.
See y'all next time.